Okay, I think we're live. So, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the finals night at the Devon Autumn Mini Swiss. We started with 12 players, we're down to four. It's going to be a very exciting evening of chess, I'm sure of it. I'm your host, Tom Thorpe, and I'm joined, as always, by my co commentator, a man who needs no introduction. So, Tim, what do you think about the matches that are going to be coming up this evening?
Thanks, Tom, and good evening, everyone who's listening to the stream.
Oh,
I
sorry, it's Dr. Tim Paulden. There we go. Sorry.
Thanks, Tom.
Yeah.
Thanks, Tom.
Oh,
Yeah, I think we've got some really interesting matches coming up to now. There's going to be a sort of clash of styles in some ways, and also as we were just chatting a couple of moments ago,
mm,
for the major. I think what's happening on the clock is going to be a brilliant thing to watch as we go through.
yeah.
So those of you who've been sort of following for the last three fortnights or so
Yeah.
will it won't be any secret that Steve Dean has been getting short of time in a lot of these
Mm.
games, whereas Alex Poyser has been flagging his opponents. They've been running out of time. He's been playing very quickly and playing good moves as well.
Yeah.
So it's going to be really interesting to see what happens in the major.
Yeah. I mean, I think in the minor as well, we could just see some utter chaos on the board. I think
Yeah.
both Richard and Trevor have shown that they like playing these sort of weird positions, messy positions with lots of tactics going on. Um, so again, two really exciting players coming up against each other, and of
Yeah.
course, all four of these players have done well in the past, three rounds to get through to the finals. So they're both on. They're all on really good scores to get here. So and they've not played each other on the route to the finals.
hmm Absolutely. Yeah, so just to sort of review that, I mean, Steve Dean and
Yeah.
Alex Poyser, both on 5 out of 6 coming out of the 3 rounds. So, let's say for those who haven't been following the last few weeks, there's been 3 rounds, each consisting of 2 games against the same opponent. So they've both managed to get to 5 out of 6, and they've actually both won their last 2 matches 2-0.
Mm.
So they're in very good form, Steve and Alex. And Richard and Trevor. So Richard's on 4.5 out of 6, and Trevor's on 5 out of 6.
Yeah.
And the format that we sort of ran for this mini Swiss was after those 3 rounds, the top two have qualified. So
Yeah.
it's been a really interesting tournament,
It
and
has.
yeah, as you say, these guys haven't played each other.
Mm.
So it's going to be interesting to see what comes up on the board. They may have done some prep, of course,
Yeah.
uh, against
Well,
who they're
well,
playing.
we'll obviously
Yeah.
reveal this as the matches go on. But we've had a chat with all four of the finalists. You have. I don't know what you're going to tell me throughout the evening, but all four of them have come into this with some form of plan, maybe, or some form of preparation. So yeah, going to be really interesting to see what they've come up with for their particular opponents. So they've had a whole 2 weeks to be able to prepare for this. So
That's right.
and it's a sort of it would be a nice Christmas present to sort of win it maybe,
Yeah.
an early Christmas present anyway. Um, it's good to see people joining us on the stream nice and early. The games will be getting underway in a few minutes' time. We sort of asked them to get started a few minutes later than our stream starts. We don't need to see Wesley So and Hikaru Nakamura. That's not the chess we're interested in. We're interested in the Devon mini Swiss. Um, yeah, it's kind of weird being at the final and not having all the players playing at the same time. So actually, hopefully, we'll be able to get into the games a little bit more
Yeah.
and give a bit more in-depth commentary, if you can
Yeah,
call it
I
that.
think I think when we first sort of envisaged the mini Swiss and what it could look like, I mean,
Mm,
we wanted to give more prominence and more attention to, um, I guess, lower rated players
yeah.
who maybe get left out of some of these sort of
Mm,
competitions, especially over the summer. I
yeah.
remember there's a whole sequence of events that were ideal for high rated sort of county level players,
Yeah.
and,
Completely.
and not so much action for everyone else.
Mm,
So I think this was designed to redress the balance.
yeah.
And I think you're right. In previous rounds, especially I think was it round 2, it was sort of organized chaos. I
Oh, it
think.
was. I think organised is
Yeah.
generous. But yeah, you're right.
So
It's
tonight we've only got 2 simultaneous matches to follow. We might be able to go into a bit more depth, and it's going to be interesting, as I say, whether they've prepared for their particular opponent tonight,
yeah.
because obviously it's all on the line. Is it worth saying about uh, what happens in terms of the format?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Let's go through the format. So they're going to be playing as normal two games of 10+6, which is what they've been playing all the way through the competition. But if it's tied 1-1 after those two games, they'll then be going through to two games of 6+3, I believe it is.
I think that's right.
Um, so for a mini match of two there, and then if that's tied, we go quicker to 3+2, and then we keep
Yeah.
going and keep going until we have a
Yeah.
winner or until one of us falls asleep. Um,
Absolutely.
Not sure what's going to happen, but we will see. Um, so that's just keeping an eye on the players list. Doesn't look like any of the finals have started yet, so
No.
a bit more time to fill in. But one thing that's probably worth mentioning is what's coming up on Friday this week, and we'll mention this later on as well. Um, we ran it in the spring. We're running it again in the autumn. We've got the Devon Grand Prix. That's been running all the way through the autumn. The quarterfinals have literally just finished, and we've got the semi-finals coming up on Friday. Um, we've got the open section and the major section in that, and that will involve you, Tim, playing because you beat me, which I didn't want to mention, but there we are.
Just slipped out. Yeah.
Whoops, what a shame. So that'll be 7:30 on Friday on this channel as per usual, but you'll only have me to put up with, certainly for the start of the stream whilst Tim gets beaten by Jack. Sorry, did I say that out loud as well? Did that slip? Um,
Yep.
let's move
Yeah.
swiftly on to the games because I can see that Richard Bailey and Trevor Hurt have just started their game. So this is the minor final, the under 110, and Trevor has started off with 1e4, and we're just waiting on Richard to get started with a French defence.
With the French, as I say, exciting openings. Yeah.
Yes.
I'm just gonna bring that up on here.
Yeah, that's fine. I think we're just still waiting on Steve Dean and Alex Poyser. I think Alex is online. I think we're just waiting on Steve, but I'm sure that won't be too long before that game gets underway.
Perfect.
And we've got a French exchange. How thrilling! This is the exciting chess we wanted.
That's right.
But actually, I think this opening gets a poor reputation. I think it gets this reputation of being incredibly drawish, but I've seen players try and play this as white for a win, um, just to simplify the opening and then start playing chess beyond that.
Yep. Yep. So now these guys have started. Let's just say a few words in terms of what they passed on before the
Oh
game.
yes, I'm
Oh well,
interested now.
Bishop E2, Bishop E7. This is exactly what we want. No, so what order should I do it? So the white play the white pieces. Left hook Trevor Hurt.
Yeah.
Um, he sort of alluded to this in a previous round, I think, but his tactic in a game of chess and what he said his strategy is going to be tonight is to get away from standard book play and, as he put it, try and razzle dazzle my opponent into mistakes. And those who've tuned in from the South Hams Club will know that is very much his personality. His nickname, Left Hook Trev, is as we said in a previous week, is because he often finds this knockout blow, sort of surprising knockout blow, just a few moves into the game. So he said, I'd rather go down in a blaze rather than limp home with a win. So
No, good for him, and
yeah,
he's definitely playing an opening here that is offbeat, not particularly much theory
yeah,
with the French exchange. So it's kind of interesting. Just as a quick thing before we move on to what Richard's plan is going into this match. Just a quick thing in this opening. It's interesting that White has decided not to play what probably is a more normal move with d4, take
yeah,
control of the center, which is a bit more symmetrical, but actually play this move c4, which offers Black the chance to give White this isolated queen's pawn, which can be a strength and a weakness because it's controlling the center and it allows your pieces to sort of move around it. But obviously, it's a weakness if it gets later on because it can't be defended by another pawn.
yeah,
So it's interesting that White's gone for this, and this knight e5 move's also interesting. I'm not sure I particularly like it. Usually in the opening, you don't push the same piece twice. You don't move the same piece
yeah.
twice early in the game, and it feels like to me I would still want to play a move like d4 to try and get the queenside pieces out. But that's the way I would play it anyway.
Yeah. I mean, he's decided to take on c4,
Mm,
which is obviously a natural choice. The other option in that position is to maybe try and gain a bit of space by playing black, playing d4 himself,
yeah,
which is another sort of idea, and sort of saying to white, I'm going to maybe back that pawn up with c5, and
yeah.
you're going to have a bit less space than you would normally claim at this point in the game.
And actually, it sort of makes this knight on e5 look a little bit worse because
Yeah.
when white gets their pawn to d4, the knight on e5 is actually a very good square in these isolated
Yes.
queen's pawn positions. So, but we've had an exchange on c4, and now the bishop and the knight pointing at f7, so a bit of pressure there.
Yep.
Um, the knight defending the bishop, but I was just looking to see whether you could get away with a move like queen
Yeah.
d4. Well, there we go.
It's been played, hasn't it?
Let's
Yeah.
happen. So the knight's under attack. The bishop is defended by the
It's
knight,
defended by
but
the knight. Yeah.
this is
So,
a little bit
yeah.
tricky. A little bit tricky.
Yeah, what's the best way of defending the knight? I guess it's just queen e2. I mean, that seems like a solid.
Yeah.
I don't think anything's happening here, but
No, queen
it,
e2 or well after rook e1. I'm just looking. Can you get away with something like bishop d6 here? And if
yeah,
the knight moves away, then you take the bishop. That
yeah, this looks
feels like
awkward, doesn't
this
it? Now?
might.
Yeah,
Because I
yeah,
was trying to work out whether you could do the same after queen e2 as
yeah,
well. So if you went queen e2 here to defend, but of course the queen on e2 defends the bishop on
yeah.
c4, which is the
That's like multi-purpose move, and
yeah,
then you drop the knight back to f3 and
yeah,
hit the queen, and yeah,
yeah. Now
so
bishop c5, which is also a tempting,
it is very tempting. Yeah,
very tempting. But we'll see how this goes. I still think Steve Dean might not be online yet, so we'll just keep an eye, and it might be worth trying to get in contact with him if we can,
okay.
um, just to see if he's available. But of course, we'll stick with this game. We're not going anywhere.
Nope.
Um,
Yeah, but I mean, Black has managed to sort of rustle up quite an initiative
mm,
from this slightly offbeat opening play. This
yeah,
you don't often see in 8 or 9 moves in this the queen on d4 sort of dominating the board. Obviously very
yeah,
hard to challenge there because
mm,
um, you can't play b3 bishop b2. You can't sort of hit it with a knight. Yeah, this is looking kind of messy, and it
yeah. It's a very
wouldn't
awkward
surprise me if
position.
his yeah
But this has all come from White not playing d4 in the opening and actually
yeah
controlling that square and defending the knight and sort of almost being harmonious with the pawns and the pieces and putting them on nice squares. And just look at the queen side for White is sort of hemmed in. Um,
yeah
I'm sure Trevor didn't want to put his rook on e3, but he saw no other option. And
yeah.
don't think there's a knockout blow here, but it's just a nice position. So what was Richard's plan coming into this?
Well, yeah, so Richard Bailey, the player of the black pieces here, Ocelot 32,
Mm.
he I said, "What's your strategy for coming in the game?" And his reply was, "Strategy, me, lol." He said no. He then went on to say he actually has lost most of his games through silly blunders,
Mm.
so he's going to try to avoid that. But that wasn't easy at this fast time control,
Yeah.
which is something we've sort of said before.
Mm.
It is really difficult for people at all levels to sort of play decent moves quickly enough.
Yeah.
And yeah, there's blunders all over the shop at all levels of chess when you get down to this
Yeah.
short time control.
Oh, completely. Just watch any of our games that we play
Yes,
at any point, and you'll see mistakes all the time.
yeah,
Not that we're saying we're particularly good, but well, I'm not particularly good. I don't know about you, but
yeah.
no, it's. Ooh, a knight takes f7.
Well, I was actually looking at these two options take on f7. Isn't c4 just hanging here? Like
Yes.
like bishop takes would have been quite forcing, wouldn't it?
Yeah,
I
bishop
think.
takes, and I mean, giving up the two minor pieces for the rook and the pawn
Yeah,
generally favours the person who's got the two
yeah,
extra minor pieces. But you're right. But black has actually taken on f7, so missed the opportunity to take on c4, and we've transposed into that line.
yeah.
Um,
Yeah, I don't even know if Black was necessarily forced to take if you did take them. If you could go King H8 rather than taking on
yeah,
F7 if you took with the bishop, but yeah, this taking on C4, which again you're then still hitting F7, you're hitting the rook. It's yeah, that looks that looked like lights out, I think.
Yeah, and now of course it's, well, black has still got the two extra pieces, and the knights look pretty, look like they have a lot of potential in this position, with all of black's pieces sort of starting to do something. I'm just thinking, can we move this piece away, this knight on d7, to allow black to play a move like knight g4, so it's defended by that
Yep.
bishop, to put pressure on this f2 pawn and the rook on
Yep.
e3. Um, just feels like quite a nice position for black, because white's got his queenside pieces stuck in the corner.
Yeah, I think black has a black on me. Black has to be quite accurate though.
Mm,
In some sense. I mean, I like this idea of this kind of knight b6 plan. Um, I was just saying, there are ways that white's sort of starting to get active. Here he's suddenly got his queen b3 check idea if he wants an extra move.
mm,
Yeah, rook f3,
yeah,
absolutely. And yeah, it's I think when he looks back through this game and he sort of sees this bishop hanging on c4, I mean,
yeah,
it's not 100% comfortable. Obviously, he's got the sort of four minor pieces, but I
yeah,
think your suggestion of starting to get them into the game is a good one.
yeah. Ooh, but g3. That move feels just wrong, only because white's not got a light squared bishop, and it's just making these squares look really weak when black's
Yeah.
got this light squared bishop ready to come in later on. I'm I'm just trying to work out if there's anything straight away. I know the engine bar moved a lot. It's possibly there was something, but I don't see it.
No.
Um, but this does feel like, but White's starting to get active, right?
Yes,
White's starting
absolutely.
to get their pieces into the game, which is exactly what he needs to do.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, I'd still take black because it's two minor pieces versus the rook and pawn. Um,
Yeah, it's interesting though. It is two minor pieces, and they need to be playing. And
yeah,
if White can consolidate here, um, he's going to be okay.
yeah,
So I think part of Black's advantage. I mean, you look at this bar down the side, sort of telling you what the engine thinks.
yeah,
Uh, it, I think that relies on Black finding decent continuations here. Um,
yeah.
I would be, yeah,
Because you want to play a move as black here, like knight g4,
you do,
right?
yeah,
But after rook f3,
yeah,
you're losing your queen, so you can't play that straight away. But it's the sort of idea you want to play. But now d4's been played. This knight, it's almost hard to get this out of the way to get the bishop into the game. And yeah, as you say, it's going to take quite a bit of precision here to get going. A move like c5 maybe as an idea to try and
yeah,
open up this diagonal again for this bishop. Try and take away this good pawn on, this strong pawn on d4. I think we're still waiting on the other semi-final, so we'll stick with this for the time being.
yeah.
We could be in for a late one. Uh, of course, they play tie
So
breaks afterwards as well, so we could be in
yeah,
for a
that's
late
right.
one anyway. But
Steve's said that he's ready to play, but chess.com is saying server at max capacity. Try later.
oh, that's
So
really helpful.
yeah,
That's really helpful.
so I'll just say to keep. He say we'll keep trying.
Yeah, no, that's understandable.
Yeah,
I think chess.com's had a few issues, so they certainly had an outage yesterday when they were about to do their Title Tuesday tournament. They just seemed to be this massive rush. Oh, it looks like Steve's just come online actually.
yeah,
But it looks like there's sort of been this mad rush because of the Queen's Gambit on Netflix, which I think we spoke
yes,
about 2 weeks ago
did
as
yeah,
well. Oh yeah,
yeah.
when the servers went out. That's right.
That's right. Massive rush to play. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's
So that,
fantastic. Of course, yeah.
yeah. So that semi-final looks like it's going to get underway in just a few minutes' time.
Yep.
Um, so now White has played this rook f3 move, which I
Yeah.
think is, it's still awkward to have your rook in front of your pawns, but I think it's a good square for the rook to be on, put pressure on this king. Now wondering whether a move like knight d5 maybe exploit this pin and try and get this bishop on b6 out of the way.
Yes, it looks tempting, doesn't it?
Mm.
I'm
So the
just
other semi-final has now begun.
Yep.
and we're starting out with a Caracan. So we'll flick over to this for the moment. This uh, other semi-final. I'll get my words out in a minute, but we'll come back to the minor one when they're finishing
Yep.
in just a moment. And we've got this two knights attack against the Caracan. Was this in Alex's plan?
So, I'll just say that Alex had sort of made a prediction for how the how the openings were going to go.
Mm,
And obviously in this game he's got the white pieces, and he did expect there to be a Caracan.
yeah.
And I think when he takes the black pieces and Steve's white, I think we all know what to expect there. So
King's Gambit.
that would be fantastic. That would be absolutely fantastic. So yeah, so just to say a few words about what they've said
Mm,
pre-match. So Steve's strategy, so cash only, the player with the black pieces.
yeah.
Um, in his own words, his plan is to play as solid and boring as possible, and to swap the pieces off and get to an end game before he goes down to the increment.
Okay.
Yep. So obviously we mentioned earlier this the time trouble that Steve's been in
Yeah.
quite a few times in the tournament. So I guess this idea of playing solid, simplifying it, trying to get down to an ending has been one that's worked very well for him so far, certainly. So um, and Alex, the player of the white pieces, has done some prep in terms of the openings,
Yeah.
and again, like some of the other players, he said he just hopes he doesn't blunder too severely. He did also mention that he felt he got lucky in some of the previous rounds in terms of flagging players when they
Yeah.
got shorter time. But he did add, I like to think it's not really flagging if there's a 6 second increment, but maybe that's just making myself feel better. so, so yeah, I mean, I think 6 second, apart from the much longer games that we've been playing, is
Yeah.
quite a long increment. So um, I'd agree with Alex that if your opponent can't find a move in 6 seconds, then yeah, you've made his life sufficiently difficult. It's not like having no increment and just running someone out of time.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Well, I just want to make a point about this opening because Alex has been playing this very quickly, which
yeah,
makes me think he might still be in prep here.
yeah.
And this feels very awkward to play with. Okay, black has to go bishop e4, which is, and then
So I'll switch.
f3. It, I mean, Alex is still playing this very quickly. Maybe he's sort of looking to play against the time, or maybe this is still preparation. But it feels very good for White this position. It almost
Yeah.
feels like he's caught Steve in a bit of a trap here. And there we go, the piece is dropping.
So how many? Yeah. So it's a very strange position, isn't it? So after castles, you're taking a knight. Yeah.
Takes on c6 because the bishop's just trapped, right? So
Yeah. Yeah.
no need to take it straight away. I suppose black's going to have some compensation because white's king isn't fully out of the woods yet.
Mm.
You've got this pawn that you need to worry about as white, which white has now defended. And black can play something like bishop takes c3 to damage the queen side, so the king's not going to be, you know, king's not going to be fully safe on the queen side as well. So yes, okay, this is winning a bishop. I'm assuming it wins the bishop eventually, but there will be some compensation for black here, which is why I think the evaluation's giving it the way it is. But yeah, Alex playing this very, very quickly sort of hints to me that either he sort of had an idea this was roughly going to happen, or just, this is prep and
Yep.
he wanted to go into this. And fair play if it is, because
Yeah. Absolutely.
I've spent hours doing prep for some games and I sometimes don't get past move 3. So um,
So he. So I mean, this bishop is trapped. So what is the idea for?
I haven't a clue. I have not got a clue. I mean, Jack Rudd,
We need
International
Jack.
Master Jack Rudd, has said engine says black is better. What's going on? So if Jack doesn't know, we're screwed. Before we go any further, we do
Yep.
need to jump back to the first match because there has been a result straight away.
Oh, wow.
And Trevor Hurt has found a knockout blow. Let's have a look at the game. So we left off after Rook f3, Queen g6.
Yes.
the knight came into d5 as I suspected to sort of put pressure
Oh,
down here. I haven't seen what happens. Oh, and after king g8, there's the knight fork on e7,
yeah,
and the queen is dropping off. So, and then a few more moves were played. So Richard's plan of not making any blunders per se has not worked out, unfortunately, in that game. Had a decent position out of the opening,
yeah, did yeah.
very nice position. Missed that bishop on c4, and unfortunately missed the knight fork. So that's 1-0 to Trevor, and Trevor just needs a draw now with the black pieces, of course, to seal the deal. And he's playing a Petrov's defense to try and seal that draw,
Yeah,
so to
as
speak.
he's entirely entitled to do.
Uh, completely. We'll come back to this game in just a moment because I just want to jump back to the
Yeah,
major because
absolutely. Yeah.
this was a crazy position. Um, so black went queen f6, and then
So,
the bishop has now been taken. Now that
so
that
the
f pawn
plan,
was
the
being,
plan with Queen F6, yes, is that you're getting this, you're getting the D pawn as well,
yeah,
and then are you winning? Are you somehow winning another pawn? He's playing so quickly, isn't he? Look at this.
yeah. Alex is playing very quickly. I I struggle to believe that
If
this is
this is
still
all prep,
prep. I
if this is
struggle
all
to
prep, this is amazing.
Yeah, I struggle to believe this is all prep, but I mean, Steve did spend 2 and a bit minutes on Queen F6, which I think is
It's
probably a move that you have to consider as white when black's thinking. So it's possible that he's come up with this
yeah,
while thinking, but this has been,
yeah,
this is madness. This is, I mean, what a crazy position.
yeah,
I mean, if I'm perfectly honest, fair play to Steve for seemingly finding a fairly critical line.
yeah.
Um, this is madness.
So just to take stock, because it's
Mm,
starting to. I mean, there was a lot going on, wasn't there? It's
yeah.
starting to resolve. So what is the material balance here? So black is
So
take on e4.
yeah. Now, of course,
Okay. So it's two. It's currently two pawns.
it's currently 2 pawns. I'm just wondering if you can get away with queen takes c2 here, because white goes bishop d3 to threaten checkmate, but then you can take the rook with check.
Okay.
Uh, and I'm not sure exactly what's going on there. I don't really want to think about it. Um, but white's got 4 pawns, black's got 6 pawns. Oh, we're seeing it potentially. Um, so white's now got 3 pawns. Okay, the queen's dropped back. So it's piece for 3 pawns after all of that,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
Are we sure Jack Rudd's not playing as white here? The speed that's being this is being played at.
Yep.
Um,
Okay. I'll let you in on a secret.
okay,
So I think there's still this prep because Alex, in his email to me, said, "I prepared a pretty deep line.
right.
Who knows if we will deviate? But if it goes the way I expect, I'll get a bishop for 3 pawns endgame, sort of. Black will have the option to keep queens on there."
You are kidding me.
I'm not kidding. I'm not
You
kidding.
are kidding me.
There we go. So,
Well,
so
I'm so, for what it's worth, I'm so pleased you didn't tell me this before the stream or
um,
anything like that. That is incredible. I mean, Sam has been sort of who've been with us the whole time, and
yeah,
clearly sort of supporting and rooting on Alex. Um,
yeah. I don't think it's. I it's amazing. It's amazing, but I don't. I actually don't know how far he's looked into this ending, because obviously whenever you do any sort of prep, especially to that depth,
mm,
you're sort of saying, oh, there might be a 10% or 20% chance we actually end up following that. I don't know how deeply he's looked into this, but
yeah,
yeah, that isn't that amazing. He's actually gone down that.
I'd be intrigued to know if this is a line that's actually like mostly known anyway in the Caracal.
Yes,
That
exactly.
that I
Yep,
I, I mean I don't know anywhere near enough theory.
yep.
Um, but yeah, piece for 3 pawns. Let's actually just talk about this sort of endgame and how do both sides play this? Because we're all taught that a bishop's worth 3 points early on, as Steve is now trading the queens.
Yeah.
Um,
So he's got his end game.
he's got
Yeah.
his end game, an end game that Alex has prepared. So
I just find that astonishing that it went all the way down that. Because what are we now? We're basically at 20. So
23.
basically saying it's black has a choice of swapping queens. So it's basically 23, 22, 23 moves of prep. So which is why he's got 10 minutes 38. So
But this is
so yeah,
something
good on him.
different. This is something very, going into the finals, I think the players have probably taken this a little bit more seriously than they have done
Yeah,
in the previous 3 rounds. I'm
yeah,
not saying they haven't taken them seriously at all, but it being the final, you sort of, you almost sort of psych yourself up a bit more for it. I certainly would anyway. Um,
yeah. I mean, in terms of what's going on here, I
mm.
mean, which side would you take here? If you
um, I'd probably take white. I
yeah,
generally, a bishop is generally worth more than 3 pawns. Uh, you sort of need a bit more as black. Because black's pawns are so far back, because we've only just reached this position, then the bishop should be able to do enough
yeah, yeah.
if it has enough targets. Yeah, technically though, tricky, very tricky.
Mm. I think I'd definitely take white, but I wouldn't. I would not say it is easy.
No,
Like I don't think you can look at this position and say, okay, white's got an extra piece. Yeah,
mm,
this is going to be a foregone conclusion. I think white still has to play quite accurately.
yeah,
Um, and yes, it's going to be interesting. It's going to be
yeah,
very
and
interesting.
and Alex is now spending some time here. Has finally
Yes.
spent some time on the clock.
Yeah.
So I think you might be right there that was preparation and well fair play is
Yeah.
literally all I can say. And I
Yeah.
mean, I
Exactly.
can't wait to find out what he's got prepared against the London, uh, which we know is going to probably come from Steve in the second round, unless you know different to me. But we will see.
Well,
Did we want to? Oh, go on.
I just thought it's probably fair just to say, I didn't know whether they'd get to this position or not, but
Mm,
thought it was fair to let them see if they got there before saying anything. So,
yeah, of
yeah.
course, of course.
So,
Um,
yeah,
right. Shall we have a quick check on the second game between Richard Bailey and Trevor Hurt? Richard needing a win. We can come back to this end game in a bit because that seems to have settled a little bit now,
yeah.
that position.
I think this is looking very good now, isn't it? After,
Well, should we just quickly go through the
yeah,
opening
of course,
just
yeah,
to
of course, sure,
of
yeah,
1996? Next, knight c6 is an interesting line. The chess.com saying this is a known gambit. I'll take its word for it. Queen e2, queen e7. What is this opening? I've never seen anything like this, if I'm honest. So after d4, which is a
I
nice
don't,
move to sort
yeah,
of keep everything solid, it does feel like this gambit hasn't achieved a huge amount, if I'm honest, in the opening.
no,
Black's got some of their pieces developed, but White's got a nice centre, so should be able to parry this, and is now developing their pieces with tempo, and well, has now traded queens, won this pawn,
yeah,
and
which is the
after
second ball.
yeah,
Oh,
but after
that's lights out now, isn't it?
after Castle's queenside takes and then winning the exchange as well, um, this just looks materially very very nice for White here.
Yeah, he's just got to, you know, we've seen it so many times. When you've got an advantage like this, you just need to consolidate,
Yeah.
and as long as White can consolidate without any dramas, then that's game over really.
So just to clarify, the material is an exchange and 2 pawns up for
Yeah,
White. But obviously, Black's pieces are fairly active, right? This is not, the most trivial conversion I've ever seen. You
nope,
know,
no, not at all.
this pawn's under attack, the c2 pawn's under attack. White's, queenside needs sorting out, the king needs sorting out.
I think this is what I mean about consolidating, though, because
Yeah,
I'd be very tempted to just play, almost as a matter of course, to play c3 here,
yeah,
and and unless there's a tactical reason why you can't, and I can't immediately see one,
no,
that just solidifies, and then to blow it open, Black's going to need to move the knight and try and play c5 or something. Like
yeah.
he's sort of running out of wood for the fire. Um,
Where would you put the king here for White?
um, I mean, I'm looking at maybe playing King D2 actually, if I can. So you can castle queenside, of course. He's
Yeah,
played C3. He's played
he's
C3.
played c3. Yeah.
I think any of these squares, and unless you're running into anything on the H6 C1 diagonal, which would be my fear. yeah, in terms of this side king d2, because those bishops would be quite strong in that line, wouldn't they?
Yeah. It feels to me that the reason I was asking the question is because I think castling kingside obviously not at the moment because the
Yep.
bishop would be undefended, but it feels to me that black, would have has these open lines against the king with the rook, and there is only one rook you have to worry about. But
Yes.
I was thinking kingside, but king d2 has been played, which I think makes sense here because it
Yeah.
gets out of the pin, right? Um, but again, this knight, needs to get out at some point. It can go to a3, I'm
It.
sure.
I think it will get out.
Mm,
It's yeah. So what we're looking at here, something like knight f7 with this idea of bishop h6. Um, is it?
yeah,
Is it? Is there a threat? An
yeah.
immediate threat?
Not sure. I actually may have preferred king d1 looking at it.
That's true. That yeah. That's
Just to allow the knight come into d2. Jack in the chat has suggested king f1, so wanting to put the king over that side.
that's
But
true.
they all sort of do similar things, I think,
Yeah.
to get out of the pin, and it's
I think king f1's quite nice actually, isn't it? Because you're basically just going to untangle. You're going to move the knight. You're going to play rook e1, and then
yeah,
and then stick your bishop somewhere.
yeah.
And yeah, there's no safety concerns at all that
Mm.
way. Um,
Whereas here, obviously, the knight can't go to d2, which would have been
yeah,
a nice square for the knight. So,
yeah,
but I mean, yeah, white is still doing well here, but going to be a matter of technique here to just,
yeah,
as you say, consolidate. Make sure you don't fall into anything with these bishops, which are always
yeah,
dangerous,
yeah.
and try and get the win to take it into the first set of tie breaks.
I mean, I'm trying to envisage a situation. I think I don't know if you ever do this when you're like analyzing a position, especially when you have to play quickly. But you sort of look at the worst case scenario and you go, okay, let's say you could play bishop h6 check
Mm.
straight away.
Yeah,
Yeah, obviously you can't because his knight's currently blocking it. But
yeah,
would I have a safe home for my king? And I think here you can just play. You can always just play king d1.
yeah.
I can't visualize a sequence that you're going to end up in trouble here.
Agreed,
Maybe,
agreed.
I'm not being. If you kind of say, okay, you give black a few moves, like what's he actually going to do with them? So,
It,
and so I think White's done quite a good job. He's actually played King D1 straight away.
yeah,
I think that's White's rather has done quite a good job of starting to get his pieces out, and
yeah.
yeah, I think he will untangle.
I think so. I think so. I think it's natural to untangle. I think it's sometimes you can get positions where you're materially ahead, but it's actually quite difficult to just make sure you consolidate. And it feels like this
Yes.
position, the natural moves, which are just the developing moves, are the
Yep.
ones that are going to untangle, and they're obviously the
Yep.
positions that are easier to play.
Yes.
Um, so I think we could be in for some tie breaks here, but never
Great.
say never because I mean we've had some crazy turnarounds in this tournament so
We have
far.
absolutely.
I'm gonna flick back to the other semi-final because semi-final. God,
Yeah.
I'm getting ahead of myself for
Getting
Friday.
ahead of yourself. Yeah.
Um, because we have reached the point where Steve is short of time, but it is no
Right.
longer a piece for 3 pawns. It is a piece for 2 pawns,
Right.
and White has got a pass pawn. Black has also got a pass pawn. But I think one of the key things here is Black's king is stuck behind this. Oh no, it's able to get out. My bad. But now Rook D7. Cut this king off. I would.
Yeah.
The thing with the extra piece. If you've got the extra piece against the pawns, you have to be active. Because otherwise the pawns are just going to roll forwards over time. So you do have to use the extra piece.
I sort of feel it if you haven't got at least one advanced pawn, and I wouldn't, this B pawn is kind of under control, isn't it? It's going to get
Mm.
that's it's the chance of that hitting a touchdown on B1 is pretty small.
Yeah.
I can't really see unless White really tries to let it through.
Yeah.
Um, it it sort of feels to me like it's the advantage has just slid across the board to White now and this is maybe what Alex was sort of hoping for
Yeah.
that he's got although he's got a decent advantage that actually Black's position is quite hard to play
Yeah.
and short of time it's going to be a killer.
Yeah. And this pawn on h6, okay, it's just controlling some squares at the moment.
Yeah,
But it can never really be attacked because this pawn on g4 does a good job of sort of blocking the rook coming to attack it. And later on, if white can get their rook and take this h pawn, then it becomes a massive threat. Now with the b pawn dropping, it's looking tricky for Steve here.
Yeah. I think in the other game it's become a rook up, or what has it?
Well, we'll
Yeah,
stick with this one. Oh,
yeah,
well, I'll jump back and take a
yeah,
look then.
yeah,
Yes, that has now become a full rook. The knight on a3, stopping the knight fork on c2. That's an
yeah.
important trick that needed to be checked out. And yeah, as you say, a rook and a pawn up, and no real immediate dangers. So does look very good for Richard there, and Richard had a good position in that first game as well, and okay, aired a bit, and then obviously blundered the knight fork, and the king and the queen. So going into the tie breaks, I think Richard will probably be the happier of the two players, so long as
Hmm.
this game goes the way we think it will. Um, but still all to play for. Got to watch out for this b pawn, of course. Just play something like rook b1, I think. Just
Sure.
just
Yeah.
defend it. There we go. And again, it's this consolidation, right? It doesn't
Safety
matter.
first. Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't matter if this a pawn drops, particularly.
Yeah.
I'm just Mystic Thorpe, I think. Um,
I would have actually been tempted to play, unless I'm missing something, to play rook d1, which would sort of counter attack d5, and
that's a
that
good
then
move.
you're sort of getting activity as well as.
Yeah,
Unless I was missing something there, just this rook b1 it does look a little bit passive, doesn't it?
yeah.
White is so far ahead of material that surely nothing can go wrong.
Well, we shall see.
Because we have.
Let's jump back to the other semi-final whilst this continues on, because I
Sure.
think this game could be reaching a conclusion fairly soon as well. I think. Um,
Yeah, there's with this king f6 has.
so you can play g5 check, rook
Yeah,
takes g5, rook takes f7, which trades the pair of rooks.
yeah, and that just trades that pawn off. Yeah.
But white doesn't really want to trade all the pawns off, I don't think.
Well, yeah,
I think it makes. And it's always a thing where if you've got the extra piece but not many pawns, you've got to make sure you keep your pawns. So then black is going to be looking to trade pawns here. But of course, this pass pawn on the queen side should be enough. Like
yeah,
black's trying to get this to rook and bishop versus rook or something like that, right? It's just trying to trade the pawns off
yeah.
and get to something which they could try and hold. Um, so now this pawn on h6 could be dropping, which I
Mhm.
mentioned sort of, at the start. It's
Yeah.
it was okay. Now it's not so
I
much.
guess that's sort of a trade for f7, isn't it? Though I mean,
Yeah,
it-
but I think that helps. I think that helps
yeah,
black.
it
I think
does. It
that
does
helps
help
black's
that. Yeah,
cause
yeah,
slightly in trying to save this game.
yeah. I think that your idea of g5 to get those rooks off, you know, was just a useful simplification, wasn't it?
I think so. I think so.
Yeah,
I mean, white just needs to think, how can I get this pawn home? Whilst keeping everything fairly safe, right? So I would be, without too much thinking, if I'm honest, be playing a5 there to go
yeah,
a6. If there's
yeah.
a trade on f7, h6, f7, fine.
Pass balls must be pushed, as we know.
They should indeed. I mean, for what it's worth, I think white still should be winning this. Um,
Yeah, this. I think the bishop's just covering too many squares. I mean, black's sort of trying to kind of coordinate the rooks somehow,
yeah,
but
yeah. White's actually done quite a good job of controlling the important squares. So f4 would have been a nice way to get in via sort of d4. That sort of way would have been quite nice. But
yeah,
White's parried that.
yeah.
This
Uh,
this bishop
mhm.
covering e2 and f1.
I mean, one way of viewing this, if people are sort of coming to the position, haven't
Mm,
just tuned in or something, Black's got two rooks, but he hasn't got a single meaningful check here. Yeah, so he can't
yeah,
check with either rook. Yeah, on any good square. So White has sort of shut down all those options, um, which I think he's been playing well. And this a5 move, I think we're going to see it on the board pretty soon. I
yeah,
think he's going to once he feels everything is under control, then that's going to sort of roll through, and yeah, I think the time situation, as we had predicted. uh, having said that, Alex is down to these sort of he's down to his last 3 minutes,
Yeah.
but he just saved so much time, didn't he, by doing that prep? And I
that
guess
prep
that's
that
yeah,
preparation, which I mean is longer than any sort of preparation that I would expect at
yeah,
certainly our level,
yeah,
like
definitely,
and quite a bit above, to be honest, in a
yeah.
lot of games. Like that's a sublime bit of preparation. But I suppose one reason that can happen in this sort of format is you know who you're playing for two
We've got
weeks.
we've got a problem here on H7, haven't we?
We have got
Yeah,
a major problem. That is a major problem, and that is 1-0 in the major final to Alex. I'm here all evening, guys. Um, sorry. Um, but I think that preparation was incredible. But what I would say is that Steve, who has played the same openings time and time again, one of the dangers of that, yes, you become accustomed to them, but you're
yeah,
also in danger of, an opponent who's willing to put that effort in to actually prepare
yeah,
something like this
yeah,
against you. Um,
absolutely. Yeah.
you know,
I mean, it's funny, isn't it? Because I guess there's at very high level chess, the preparation is a huge part of the game,
yeah,
and it's going through often with the aid of a computer, and looking at previous games and trying to establish what the best line. What does your opponent normally play in this position?
yeah,
Of course, nowadays you can get everyone's games and look through and say, oh, he normally plays this sort of system,
yeah,
and yeah, I think there's probably some people who'd say that that's it's become chess has become over prepared in some ways, that now
yeah,
everyone's got access to this stuff, and they can um, yeah, they can prepare for you, even if you're playing even if you
yeah,
just started out, someone can prepare for the openings you've played. But
yeah,
I think that's the beauty of it, of course, that if you know an opening well, you have that advantage, that you know the plans and you know the systems.
yeah.
But if you play it all the time, I remember I've had some games where people have prepared against me in
Yep.
advance, and yeah, it's ended really badly.
Yeah,
So
I remember you complaining about it bitterly
yeah,
to me.
yes,
Um,
well, yeah,
but you're right.
yeah,
I mean, for me, I like just playing chess. I much prefer sort of going into a game mostly blind. I'd sort of like to know what my opponent's likely to play, just so I know if they're trying to trick me or trying to do something else. But
yeah,
I mostly go into it fairly cold. Not all the time, depending on who I'm playing. But yeah. But one thing you were saying about at a high level preparation becoming key, it is so important. But they play such a wide range of openings at that
yeah.
incredibly high level, which you know we can't, we as mere mortals can't spend all day of every day and have teams of people behind us preparing these openings for world championship matches. We don't have that luxury, so we're stuck with chess books and
Yeah, that's right.
DVDs or whatever, or
Yeah,
not bothering, which
but
happens
but
a
that,
lot.
that last game that it does illustrate that if we can maybe find out from Alex to what depth he had actually prepared that, but it
Mm,
would not surprise me if it was right through to what we saw. You know,
yeah,
the description certainly fits.
yeah, it does, which is incredible, to be honest. A
Yeah.
nice finish here would be rook takes a3 and then queen b3 mate, but this obviously works just as well playing rook a7.
Yeah.
So we are going 1-1.
Well done, Richard. Pulled it back.
Pulled it back, so now we're going to have two games of 6+3.
Yeah. Do you want to just message?
Yep.
Just
Uh,
put a message in the chat maybe and say.
yep. Uh, Happy to go with two games of 6+3 whenever you're ready. So after. Right. So they're happy to take a short break. Hopefully they'll be okay. If you wouldn't mind just checking that they're
Yeah,
okay
that's
with
fine.
that, whilst I flick over to the London, because I want to see what we've got prepared against the London system, which we knew was coming from Steve,
We
because we
did.
never mention it on the stream at all that Steve plays the London.
No.
We've never mentioned it, and sorry, Steve. Um, so far, nothing particularly. I wouldn't say innovative, but it's all fairly solid and standard from both sides at the moment. An early knight h5 perhaps is slightly unusual. Um, White's now got a decision: does he actually drop back to e3 or play bishop g3, um, or play bishop g5? Thanks, Steve. Just stop me thinking.
Yep. So I'll flick through to that.
Oh, did I just hear myself there in the? That's fine. So now this
Right.
knight coming to f4.
Yep.
Where's this knight going? Is it just going back to g6 here? Or is it trying to get out of the way of some discovery from the queen? I mean,
Well,
John has.
it's
Sorry, go on.
well. I was going to say there's no. It, whenever you see a move like that, it's like, well, actually, is he just going to keep the knight there? So after it can be backed up, can't it, with bishop d6. If White plays bishop g3, bishop d6, just to defend it,
Yeah.
and it kind of it's quite a useful knight there, isn't it?
Yeah, it's stopping a move like bishop d3. I was just thinking, and also just hopping back, if you go g3, of course, to hit the knight back, the bishop is completely stuck
Yeah.
on the side of the board. So, yeah, I think you're right. John has made the comment, does Steve play the London? Um, no, I don't think he does. Don't think he does.
Just
And yeah, Sam is also commenting about this light square bishop because it's putting pressure on g2 as well.
yeah.
So
Yeah, this isn't his first outing with the London.
no,
Yeah.
no.
So, uh, yeah, I think Alex had this prepared. All,
Yeah.
all he said, he didn't give as much detail as the other game,
Okay.
but he did say he was going to do e6 before bishop f5 to get this knight h5 move in.
Okay.
Um, and this trade is, I mean, I like Black's position here. I don't know
I,
about you.
I like Black's position a lot. The two bishops and the fact that Black's going to be able to open up the position at the right time with e5
Yeah,
feels like that's a good advantage for Black because the bishops like these open positions, and I feel like that the potential in Black's position to push forward in the center,
yeah.
he's able to use those bishops to the best of their ability.
Do we have to report Steve because he's given up this London bishop, and I thought one of the conditions of playing the London is
Do you have
you
to
have to
call the
keep
London police? Do you have to call the
what's he called?
Met?
You have to call the Met because the whole point of playing the London is that you sort of try and preserve this bishop on g3 or h2 for the entire game essentially. And certainly you can obviously swap it for Black's bishop, but
Yeah,
yeah, I think Black's doing very nicely here. Some more prep. Some more prep. Can you
some
believe it?
more prep. It's I mean, if Alex wants to do my prep in any important games, I
Yeah,
think
exactly.
you know
It's going to be
certainly
going to be a game with quests. Can you
going
find some?
to be Magnus's second in the next World Championship match. It's
I mean, I think at this point in the game, what is it? 10 plus 6. Yeah.
yeah,
So at this point in the game, sort of 11 moves in, you would have expected to, depending on how familiar I are with the opening, to use a minute or a minute and a half probably.
yeah,
Um, and Alex has now got 30 seconds more than he started with, so it just
yeah,
gives a nice. It's like a sort of time handicap, isn't it? If you
yeah.
do prep and it comes off, and you get to a position that you know is fine, and you know the plans, yeah, yeah, very
It
very
helps. It
nice.
helps a
It
lot.
it does definitely help. Yeah.
Yeah, it's.
So it's Steve deciding where his bishop goes then, because
I think so. I think so.
yeah,
I think it's a question of do you put it on d3, e2 feels a bit passive to me, or b5 maybe put some pressure on the knight. I think he's also worried about sort of what's he going to do against an e5 push.
yeah,
Um,
agreed.
and okay, he's now decided to put the bishop on b5. Um, but I don't think he'll be looking to trade this off if a6. I
Uh,
think he'll just want him to drop this back to something like c2 or b3. Possibly b3 to put some pressure on d5 to try and dissuade black from pushing the pawn on to e5.
yeah.
Um, that feels like a reasonable idea. And white's just going to castle, play rook e1
Mhm.
um, on the semi-open file and develop fairly naturally like that.
Yeah.
Um, I'm surprised Black didn't castle straight away there, but
Yeah.
it might not make a difference.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah. And then Black's plan of perhaps going something like a6, b5, and I have just looked at the chat, so I am cheating slightly. But Jack has also said sort of this helps Black's minority attacks. So um, for those that don't know, sort of minority attack is when Black's got these sort of two pawns against White's sort of three on one side of the board, but is able to try and um, push forwards with them with b5, b4. But well, that's a decision I'm very surprised by, to take on
Mm.
c6. That's a
Yep.
surprising decision for me. And it just feels like these two bishops
Yeah.
have just a lot more potential than these knights.
Yeah.
Just feels like a really
What
nice
what could
position
he
for Black.
what could he be thinking? Could he be thinking that he can get? I'm just looking at how do you actually activate these the horses basically, and it looks like knight b3. Yeah, I don't know. I sort of feel I want to get that to c5, so it's at least
Yeah.
doing something. And then if black retreats, you can maybe try and bring the other one to d3 and try
Yeah.
and take over that square.
Mm.
I guess this is sort of pointing towards the same plan, isn't it? This
It's trying to
taking that square.
clamp down on
Yeah.
this square, um, which I think is fine. I think
It does seem a little bit weakening though. Like I'm a little bit worried about black's sort of extra center pawn here,
yeah,
and whether this is just going to sort of it does need to be circumspect, but
yeah.
if black can prepare,
Mm.
because that would be for me that would be sort of black's plan to try and push e5 at the right moment, and I don't know
Yeah.
um, whether it's on for a move or two, but
No. But Black can play a move like Queen E7 or probably more Queen C7 actually.
yeah,
Um,
yeah, I like
and
queen c7, yeah,
yeah, but to try and get it in, Queen E7 could run potentially into this rook coming to E1 and putting pressure on it. So
yeah,
yeah, to me it just feels like Black's play is fairly natural. Just push through the
yeah.
center, open things up, and use the bishops. You know,
So I mean, I guess the reason why that's this a5 sort of target, yeah, trying to smash open the queen side looks nice
yeah,
as well. Um, I guess part of it is long term thinking about this bishop on d7, which is sort of this kind of big pawn at the moment.
yeah,
Like how do we get that out? And obviously one way to activate it is to move the e pawn forward and
yeah,
to create space for that bishop, especially now that white's clamped down on c5. So
yeah.
yeah, I think Black wants to be sort of aiming for that in the next sort of two or three moves if possible. Having said that, it's quite hard for White to resist this this plan.
It's really hard, really difficult. Do you have to go
Yeah,
a move like A3 here and allow the A file to be opened up?
yeah, yeah. I don't know what people in the chat think of this or whether they're sort of commenting on it, but it feels like one of those positions where like Black's position is kind of steadily getting better,
Yeah,
White's position is steadily getting worse. That's how it feels to me. I don't know
I,
if that's
I think I agree. I think Black's just playing moves which are probing. They're just trying to create weaknesses and you know slowly open things up for the bishops to run riot. And White's
yeah,
almost struggling to be able to activate these knights because they're not quite on the right squares really, and there's only one outpost, right? If you had two outposts,
yeah,
or two squares that the knights would sit really nicely on, then maybe you could have see some potential. But here it just feels tricky, and it feels like Black's got a good advantage here.
yeah.
Just to say the other semi final. Oh my god! Stop saying semi final. The other final. I'll get it out of my head in a minute. Has begun, so they're going into their first set of tie breaks, which are
Yeah.
at a shorter time control of 6+3. So the
Six
three
plus
second increment is going to be really interesting. One thing that I noticed in none of the plans that were mentioned, I'm just flicking over to the other game where we've seen an advanced French this time,
Yes.
is none of them mentioned anything about going into the playoffs and what they would do in a shorter time control, or are they looking to go into a shorter time control where they felt they had a better advantage.
Yeah, none of them have mentioned that. I do wonder whether, I mean, when you sort of set the time control for these things, I guess you are trying to balance out, you know, especially when there's potential playoffs. You know,
Yeah.
how long could the whole thing take potentially?
Mm.
And obviously, if they keep in the pairs of games, if they keep drawing 1-1, it could sort of run quite a while.
Yeah.
Um, you're trying to balance that out with giving them a decent amount of thinking time. And one
Yeah.
thing they have said about the mini Swiss, quite a few people have said this in feedback, is that having this 6 second increment has worked really well. So
Yeah.
this sort of idea of a slightly longer, which I guess um, you can't really do in a tournament situation. Like when we have like one of these online tournaments, like we
Yeah.
do on Mondays and Fridays, the problem is you don't want people waiting around.
Of
And
course.
if you have a game with a long increment and it runs to 100 moves, then yeah, people aren't going to sort of be too happy with that. Whereas this format, where you're playing 2 games against the same person,
Yeah.
obviously you can take as long as you like, and no one's waiting on that. So,
Yeah.
I wonder if in the new year it might be worth experimenting with, some more sort of longer time controls, but
Yeah.
rather than doing it on a Monday or Friday, to sort of
Mm.
do it in these alternative formats where you're just playing against one opponent, or
Yeah.
at a particular time or something like that.
And it's something that you don't see very often, I don't think, because we, as at a lower level, we only see sort of, we play in tournaments. We might play in a team tournament, we play in the leagues. You never have these sort of matches where you're playing multiple games against the same player as well. And I
Yeah,
think I wouldn't say it's a novelty. There's a novelty factor to it, but I think it adds something quite different to your strategy, really, because you think, oh, I'm now behind in the match. I need to sort of,
yes,
win the next one to keep up, or
yeah,
I've done some preparation for this opponent, or I know what their weaknesses are, and so I'm going to try and steer the games one way to the other. It almost feels a bit more personal. I don't know,
yeah,
and it's something that we only see in like world championships or in like the World Cups. So I think it's I don't know. For me, it's really nice, and except when you lose a match to someone like yourself, Tim, um, which I have
well,
experience of. But
yes, yeah. Well, it was, yeah.
it was fun.
It was very, to be fair, it was very closely contested,
Yeah,
and it was,
I'll
by,
mention more of that on Friday.
yeah, exactly.
Without Tim here starting to gloat. Um,
Uh,
let's start talking about the chess that we see on this board.
okay.
So we've got level material here, and
Yep.
we're going to probably see an exchange of the knight and the bishop, with this knight attacking both the queen and the light squared bishop. Um, I'm not sure white should take on c6, but I think that's probably what we'll see. Um, and to me, this looks fairly level. This bishop is going to reroute itself to c1 and then out somewhere else. So it's not a particularly bad bishop, even though it's stuck behind this c pawn at the moment.
Yep.
And this black bishop's going to sit fairly nicely on f6. I
Yeah.
probably slightly favour black, but not by much.
No, not by much. Yeah. Yeah. It's funny how in both games we're looking at sort of two bishops versus, I guess in the other one it's two knights, but in
Mm.
this case it's a knight and a slightly dodgy bishop currently.
Yeah.
um, yeah. I'm not sure about this last move. Um, can black just take the pawn on a4?
Ooh, I hadn't noticed that. I was wondering why the engine had switched a bit.
Yeah.
I think you're right. I think you're right.
I'm just saying it just seems so natural to take. I'm not quite sure what the.
Well, there doesn't seem to be a
Uh,
particular, it's not like the pawn is on a7 and the rook's away, so you could then attack the bishop and then rush through with your rook. It's sort of nicely defended here, this structure.
mm. Yeah, I think taking on a4 was problematic, wasn't it? Because especially because you're playing bishop b5 afterwards and
Yeah,
sort of claiming that nice diagonal, and then yeah, it was definitely advantage black. But
yeah,
yeah,
but not happened, and
yeah,
well, you've still got this problem as white, right? You don't want to have to play a move like rook a1 to defend it, so maybe a move like queen c2 perhaps to shore it up,
yeah,
or a move like b5 does a similar job, but it's a bit sketchy because you've got to be a bit careful of your loose pawn on c5 here.
yeah, yeah.
So I'm just thinking maybe sort of, A takes b5, A takes b5, the bishop drops back.
It has to go to e8 though, doesn't it? At the moment, is that
Yeah, it
right?
has to go to e8. Is white going to
Yeah,
play a move like c6? Well, we might see this line
we're
come on
seeing
the
this on the
board.
board. Yeah,
Um,
yeah. This it feels a bit too advanced, doesn't it? It feels like it's going to come under assault there.
yeah. But then the bishop on e8 is not a particularly nice piece. But maybe it'll be okay once you go and move
Yeah,
like f6 and then get
it's
the
gonna,
bishop out,
yeah.
right?
It's going to be like a coiled spring. It's going to kind of come back into the game. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
just sort of temporarily out of play, isn't it?
yeah. But of course, the times are shorter for this game. They only have the three
They are.
second
Yep.
increments. So, you know, we've not seen these players playing at a shorter time control. We've only seen the longer ones. So it will be interesting to see how they react and adapt to that. But so far, both players fairly level on time,
Yep.
as c6 is played on the board. Um, let's have a quick look before we get too distracted with the other semi-final.
Yep.
And the A file had opened up, so we left it off at something like A5, A3. Black did then push through in the center.
Hmm.
White's trying to route to C5, so all the things that we were discussing.
Yeah.
Decision to push the pawn on, which I don't think is a bad one.
No, I like that.
And then a
I
move
like
like
that.
E3, I like this.
Yep.
And then opening up the A file as well. So black has done sort of pretty much what we were expecting, trying to push through in the center, try and open things up a little bit. And this pawn
Yep.
on f6 actually is quite good at stopping any knight coming
Incursions. Yeah.
to e5, blocking off the f file. This pawn's actually a really nice pawn,
Yeah.
and I just think black still has an advantage.
Mm. Yeah. I'm not. White is sort of short of a plan here, isn't he? I mean, what can we do here as white? Because you can't even move your b3 knight because it's tied
Yeah,
down. So I mean, yeah. So
yeah.
knight f3 maybe. I don't know.
Knight f3, but then where's that knight go? I think
It's
the
not
big
going
question
anywhere. Yeah.
the big question here is what is white doing with their pieces.
Yeah.
Um, one of the things I always think of if I'm struggling for a plan is sort of if I could put my pieces anywhere, where would they go?
Yeah.
And I can sort of see, well, the rook would go on the a file, the knight would go to c5, but this second knight, I don't know where I'd put it.
Yeah.
I don't know. Um, White has gone knight f3, presumably to get knight c5 in,
Yeah.
and probably play something like queen b2 and rook a1, and try and take
Yeah.
the a file like that.
Yeah.
Um, of course, black only needs a draw as well after winning the first game, so Alex does just need a draw, and Steve
That's right.
needs to find a way to win this.
Yeah. Yeah. So this is. Yeah. Hopefully he won't miss 96. There we
Yeah,
go.
as I try and draw the arrow,
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
course that
Exactly.
would be forking the queen and the rook.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Just sort of covering makes
lock
sense.
that off.
Yeah.
It feels like I don't know. The more I look at this, the more I think white may be getting active here. Something like queen a6 and rook
It's,
a1 perhaps, and
yeah.
just try and infiltrate a little bit, especially in a sort of must-win game. Just try and probe a little bit. Try and do it. For anyone
Yeah.
who's just joining the stream, I see Gary has just joined the chat. So they are starting out with 2 games of 10+6. So this is a 10+6 game, the second one in their set, but the other semi-final reaching their in their second set of tie-break. No, their first set of. Shall I go home? Their first set of tie breaks are in 6+3, which we'll
Yeah.
jump back to straight away, I think, because I've just seen their
Yeah.
score. And before I mention it, Alex has just offered a draw, which I think may be declined.
Yes. Yeah.
Just a
That
little
would
bit.
be. Yeah. 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 That's Alex through and through, though, isn't it? So, okay, I think we might have a problem here tactically on the other game.
In the other game, aha,
Yeah,
that is a fork.
that is most definitely a thought. And I don't think there's any afters. No.
No, so that's going to win the
That's when,
bishop. So is that just a whole bishop up? It's a bishop for two pawn. No, just one pawn. Bishop for one pawn. I can't
Yeah,
count. I forgot the c pawn still existed. Um,
yeah,
counting's never been my strong point, Tim. Um,
yeah. It's just a faster format, isn't it? We were saying earlier, that's where the sort of blunders come,
yep.
and
Yeah. So
yeah,
move like
this
queen
is looking very
a5 here,
nice. Yeah,
defend the knight, and
yeah.
happy days. But of course, still lots of chess to be played. And look at the times. Um, now this is
So
obviously this is
that's
okay
defending. Yeah, it's
because it's
defending by
attacking the
attacking the
queen.
queen. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
And obviously the knight would then retake if black takes the queen, which would get it out of danger.
See,
So
I think I quite like this move.
yeah, I
I
do.
think this is
I'd
yeah,
not seen
because
it. I'd not seen it.
there are all of these discoveries which look frightening, but I don't think they are. I think this
No,
is yeah,
I think this is all under control. I think for white.
yeah,
But of
yeah.
course,
It
with the
is now, isn't
time
it?
and only the 3 second increment, it's going to blow up pretty quickly. Um, we'll sort of stick with this one for the
Yeah,
moment, although I'm intrigued with what's going on in the other game um, as well. Yeah, both players stepping up the pace here, knowing they need to move quickly. And of course, if Trevor retakes the lead here, going 2-1 up, then Richard has done it once before and has to do it again. And that is going to be the end of the game
yeah,
after the rook has taken the queen. So that is a 2-1 lead now for
yeah.
Trevor. And so Richard has to do it all again, has come back once and needs to come back again for this second game.
So if we switch back to
Yep.
the major, because Steve's sort of hovering in his favourite sort of 10 to 15 second mark. Um,
Yeah.
Obviously with the 6 second increment still. Yeah.
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 So
Actually, it's being a cause of confusion because this one's still on 6 second increment and the other one's on 3. So we've got to.
confusion mostly for us, not the players. The
But
players are going to
probably,
be.
yeah. They're only playing one game. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I
So
think, yeah,
I still think this is, Steve has to win this, doesn't he? So
yeah, it's the knights can be tricky. Like it's
they
not.
can. They can. Yeah.
There's certainly not. It's not a given that this won't be a decisive result, but it is tricky to see any weaknesses in Black's position.
Yeah.
For what it's worth, I don't think Black is winning this
No.
at all. I think it feels like with the two bishops, you almost need to have an open position and sort of some attack going. And it felt like, I don't know where it sort of slowly drifted away, or maybe it was never as good as we first thought. But
Yeah.
reaching this position, I mean, yeah, I'd still take Black, but
Yeah.
still very solid. But
Yeah. It's actually quite psychologically for Black. It's quite a difficult position to be in because his position's fine.
mhm,
As we said, he's if not slightly better. But White, due to the match circumstances, White is never taking a draw.
yeah,
So although it's a nice situation to be in, this game's going to go right down to this is not going to be agreed drawn. So
no. Well, this
yeah,
feels like this helps White.
yeah, that feels like a concession to me.
This feels like a major concession, only
Yeah,
because this bishop here, you've got these 2 pawns that are on light squares, and this knight now has this outpost on
yes,
d4, which is
yeah.
marvelous. Absolutely
I
fantastic.
don't like this at all because
No.
he's thinking of defending c6 from b5, but then you can chop at any time, and
And then you've got this passed pawn on
they've got
c5.
passed pawn and two isolated. So
I'm not just saying that because the sort of evaluation bar on the left flipped. It's an unusual decision because
yeah,
Black has this bishop has no targets. The 3 pawns on the queen side are all on dark squares.
yeah,
So yes, okay, the black bishop can defend around them, but White's just going to be able to put pressure on this without too much difficulty. And
oh,
what's the engine? Oh, knight e6 and knight f4 check would have sealed the
oh,
game there.
ouch. Yeah, so let's have a look at that. So
Yes,
knight e6 hits the
it hits
rook,
the rook, and
but
then
it also threatens knight
when the
f4
rook
winning the bishop.
moves, then
Oh,
you go
that's
knight
horrible.
f4 check. So
I don't, I'm not surprised that that's not trivial to see. It looks like it's
yeah,
yeah. He won't be looking for that kind of tactic, I
yeah.
don't think.
I've been doing my puzzle rushes recently, Tim. So
All right.
I haven't. Um, but okay, Black's now sort of shored that up. But
So the problem here, yeah, as I thought Steve would find this, that the problem is, as we say now, before White couldn't infiltrate on a6 because of the bishop,
yeah,
but this way he's kind of gone around via a8 on
yeah,
the dark squares, got to a square where he's now hitting c6,
yeah.
and this is picking up a pawn, I think.
Yep, the black king is one square too far away. Can't fly over to d7. And obviously, if you go bishop b5, then that's obviously attacked by both the rook and the knight as well. So
Yeah,
we
I
could be
think
seeing tie breaks in this one as well.
we could, which would be great.
This is fantastic, but also I'm not getting to sleep tonight, am I? We'll be here till
So
midnight. But thanks everyone for joining us live. It's good to see. And yeah, we have reached a rook end game. Steve wanted an end game. He's got an end game.
he might not want this one.
Well, I'd
I
take it
don't
with a
know.
pawn up. I'd take it a pawn up. And the
Yeah,
fact that these queenside pawns are just so strong, right?
yeah,
They're gonna help each other
yeah.
come through. White's king's doing well.
Both in the last 20 seconds now, so
Mm,
just dip beneath.
yep,
I think Steve's got this. I think he's been we've seen him be low on time so many times,
mm,
and he's getting the 6 second increment.
yep.
There's no complex tactics, and I think it's hard for Alex to get something going here.
Yeah, but it's a rook end game. Anything can happen. We've
It,
seen rook end games turn very quickly.
yeah,
Um, but as you say, it's difficult for black to get active. I like this idea to try and get c4 in and just get rid of this annoying d
yeah,
pawn and just clear it. Engine doesn't like it.
nah,
I think practically it's good because you want the king
yeah,
defending these two pawns, so then your rook can deal with the queen side and the king can shepherd it home. Move like rook d6 now maybe to pick
yeah,
this up.
yeah.
Play rook d5 check. There's several options here.
So, so
And what?
this
Yeah, go on, go on.
yeah. Well, I was just saying, like in this kind of position, you're as White, you're just trying to always make a move that definitely keeps the win in hand, right?
Yeah.
Um,
So
and
this
it sort of
is
felt like allowing yes. So now that this pawn structure has been established, and White's got rook b7 in, yeah, this is
yeah, and the king and pawn ending will be winning because White's king can just leave these pawns on the queen side and just run and
yeah,
just take
yeah,
everything on the king side. So
yeah.
it looks
The
like we are
king's
going to be going to tiebreakers here as well. And what will be really interesting is the prep has come out from Alex. So Alex prepared
yeah,
this really great line in the Caracan.
yeah.
I'd like to think that Steve won't go into it again.
Yes,
And we'll play something slightly different because I think from the amount of time that was spent, I think from Steve's perspective, it would be quite clear that there was some preparation. And
so cunning idea there of trying to tempt White to play King f5, and then I think Black had h3, which should be a bit. Is that right?
yes, yes, that's right. That would have been nice.
I've actually lost to that before in
Oh,
a very similar position, but this
that'd have been
yeah,
painful.
safety first. Safety first. This is
Yeah,
is very easy now.
yeah. Just make
Um,
sure you're not pre-moving as white, so you don't get
yeah,
tricked, and
yeah. I
don't
don't
do.
think with 6 seconds you don't need to pre-move. And anyone for Space Invaders? I mean, we said about Alex playing onto the bitter end.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean he's going to do that here, but Steve's got over a minute now. So should we switch to?
yeah. Let's switch to the other one. Just as a quick response to John, I'm not betting anything with Steve, but we'll definitely see a London again. That's all I'm betting, and I'm not going to get great odds on that. Um,
Oh, um we've got some
ooh,
tactical problems here, haven't we?
well, there's I let's
But the problem with this move. Let's see if he finds it first of all. There's
yes, there's a nice
yeah,
move here. Should we show it on the stream? Let's show
go
it on
go
the
for it.
stream.
Yeah,
So obviously we've got rook e8 check here, and then the rook defends, which is the only way to get out of check, and then the queen comes to d5,
yeah,
forces the king into the
awesome.
corner, and then you can take that rook with checkmate. Um, that is the tactic, right?
It was a tactic.
Good.
I think. I mean, the bar's staying up, so I'm assuming that it
After king takes, have you still got like queen d5 check and then just bring the other rook
bring
in?
the other rook in or something. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was a quite crisp
Cool.
finish, wasn't it? With
Do you mind just messaging the other two? I can't see the chat because I've got the stream open, but the game open. But just check that they're okay with some 6+3 games.
yeah, yeah, definitely.
Cool. Cheers for that. So material wise, white is actually behind, but the black king is on g6, and Jack mentioning a very nice move there, Queen G8. That does a very similar job to Queen E5, just to take on G7 and the game. So yes, I'm assuming that eventually either the Queen and Bishop are going to do the job, or the Rook's going to come in and
Yeah.
whatnot. Just quickly, let's just.
I was just going to say
Oh, go on.
before you click away from that. I mean,
Mm,
just on general level, we've talked about it before. There's white is what 3 pawns down here. Is that right?
yeah.
So it's seven versus three. But yeah, you've highlighted them. I mean, black's pieces haven't got out of bed. They haven't contributed to the game at all so
Mm,
far, and you need to get your entire army playing. And so many of these games, where the game doesn't go with the material,
yeah.
it's normally because of this lack of development on one side. And yeah, this is going to be hopefully
Yep. I think that's a good move.
conclusion. Yeah, seems like a very
Tr-
nice move.
Trying to work out the checkmate here, which is quite difficult to do whilst just
Yeah,
keeping an eye on everything else. Queen G6 is natural. King F4. Where's the mate? Is it? What am I missing?
just think the other one's just started.
Yep.
You've got
You've got
Queen
Queen
G3,
G3.
Queen F3. Yeah,
Yeah, and Queen F3. Nice.
yeah, that'll
Nice.
do.
Yeah,
Nice.
Gary. So we are commentating on. Well, whilst we've got a small lull in the games. Yeah, we've got on Friday. We've got the semi-finals of the Autumn Grand Prix in Devon.
Yeah,
So that will just be me commentating on that, and then we'll have the finals of that the following week. But
yeah,
yeah, so we've still got stuff coming up, and of course all the videos from previous rounds are available. Some of them are available still on Twitch, but others are available on YouTube as well, which I'll put a link
yeah,
somewhere at some point. It's still Chester1883,
yeah.
the same channel name, because I'm not very original. Um, so okay, the
This,
white's
this
not
king,
found.
this king hunt's got a little bit. I'm a bit worried this king's actually getting away. It's like,
Is it ever going to get away? I mean, the thing is that white's played fairly natural moves, but
yeah,
it's not quite worked out. I think G3 was probably the wrong move, but I mean, yeah, it's
and so this would this be the most amazing save you've ever seen if black doesn't if black somehow gets the king to safety, because it's not easy to find the exact combination that's going to do it. I don't think.
no. I mean, it's still. I mean, okay, white is
Yeah,
just continually checking, but
yeah.
it's at some point black is going to somehow
I think he's getting
potentially.
out. I think he's going to get out. I'm gonna call it now. Black's king.
Oh. But of course, if White does win this game, if Richard does win this game, then we go to another set of
We
tie
go to
breaks,
the
which are
yeah.
three
We go to
plus
three
two.
two. Yeah.
Um, it is amazing how tricky this is,
It's an
right?
Iron King. Iron King. I think it's called.
It's when's the 50 move rule? No, King
Yeah.
just wandering
Well.
around the
Unfortunately,
board.
you played G3 with the rather than Queen G3, so
Yeah,
that would have been lights out. But
yeah,
yeah, this is it's horrible being in this situation where you think that there's a mate here.
yeah.
Um,
Okay, the King's probably going back to C6 here, and
yeah, it's getting
again,
bad.
it's still not obvious at all to me, anyway. Like I'm sure there is something, but
Yeah.
what it is, I'm not
Yeah,
sure.
you can't stop the king going back to D7, and then it's you know yeah.
This is just ridiculous.
This is it's like the other game we saw.
Yeah. So something like Queen C, Queen C.
Yeah. That's not right
Oh
at all.
no!
That's not right at all.
Oh
Oh,
no! Oh no! Now queen takes c2. Now queen takes queen.
that is one of the most. He must see queen takes queen here. This would be
I
the
think
most
that's why
amazing
he's.
thing I've ever seen.
I feel that's why White's taking the time because he almost feels guilty, and that's why I wouldn't be surprised if he's played that move because he feels guilty that he's sort of made that mistake, and both players missed it.
Yeah,
I refuse to believe that they've missed that again.
yeah. That's well, yeah. That's incredible sportsmanship again. If that's the reason.
Yeah, I really do think that's the case. I mean, but
This
now
is yeah,
Black's king is sort of getting out again,
it's
so
going out.
we've got it.
It's going
We
out.
genuinely have a game here.
Yeah, we
It
do.
feels like a move. It still feels really difficult because I was about to say a move like Rook D1 to push Queen D5, get the bishop involved in the checking as well.
Yep.
Can you believe what we're seeing, Tim?
I called it earlier. I said the king would get to say king b7 here.
Did you imagine that both
Yeah,
players
I
would
saw
miss
that.
two queens on pre?
I saw all of that.
Okay. In answer to your question, Gary, do players show compassion? Some do, most don't. I think it's fair to say. Um, well, now
The nice ones do. Yeah.
the nice ones do. I wouldn't have. Um, maybe that says more
I
to
think
me.
that's actually it is actually a really tricky one. But in that situation, um, there's no there's no obligation to
No.
go. Oh, you blundered, and so obviously it was.
Yeah. And obviously, and now Black is 2 pawns up and
Yeah,
looking in a nice position here.
I sort
Yeah.
of feel. I know. I was going to say Black had his own little mating net going on, but of course the bishop's covering h8, so
Yeah.
he didn't quite have that. This is.
Are we not taking this pawn on e4 at any point? Like, do we? I mean, don't take it now
Yeah.
because you would have that. But
This is just utter madness.
yeah. Oh, and now
Take it now. You can take it now.
now.
But this isn't good.
Oh no, this of course the rook was under attack, but I think White needs to win this game. Richard does need to win this, and I feel that this one is slipping away with only one pawn left on the board.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Unless you can, the one last trick has to be bishop a5 to get rook c7 checkmating. That would have been the one trick I think that White could have tried rather to try and win this game, but White's hanging on here.
Yeah.
That's, in your words, Tim, the most incredible save that you've ever seen.
Yep. Yeah, but that's chess.
That is chess.
That's chess. In a way, having this sort of computer bar bobbing up and down, it's like, oh, it's gone wrong. It's gone wrong. The two players don't know what the evaluation is, and
Nope.
White was. I think the thing about that king hunt,
Yeah.
which obviously didn't quite pay off in the end, was sometimes you need to cut off the squares for the king
Rather than just keep checking.
rather than checking, because
Yeah.
unless the check is itself cutting off a
Yeah.
it'd typically be like a diagonal. Sometimes you check on a diagonal to stop the king getting away, which I think was why White played Queen A4.
Yeah.
But it just sort of seemed there were just a few too many checks that allowed this king to run all the way back, and that was
Yeah.
I think it was a let off.
Well, it's the sort of thing when you teach sort of new players how to checkmate with a king and queen against a king.
Yeah.
The first instinct is just to continually check with
Yeah.
the queen, and actually what you need to do is cut off the opponent's king and bring your own king in to the attack, and it's very much the same thing there.
I think there is like a temptation. I think when you're material down though, to sort of
Yeah.
go, oh, there's obviously if you're checking, then you're you know that your opponent's not getting back in the game in some sense. So
Yeah.
I think there's again a psychological thing there where actually you need to take a move out sometimes just to
Yep.
just sort of guarantee it.
Well, we'll let these guys play on the end of this match, or well, potentially the end of this match. We'll jump to the other game because
Yep.
the times are very similar here, which is surprising. So, just a quick thing in the opening.
Yep.
We have seen something different in the opening straight away from Alex. 2 knights, or did we see this? I don't think we did. No, it was different last time.
Yep.
So Steve and Alex have played something different. Um,
Well,
don't ask me about the
is
theory.
that Steve deviating by not letting this bishop get kicked back?
Yeah, taking on f3, I think is. I mean,
Because
is the
in the game he lost it for some
yeah
pawns, and in this game he's
yeah
traded
yeah,
it off for the knight. Yeah.
and taking on f3 in this opening is meant to be the theoretically challenging
Okay.
one. And we've reached this position where I think Black's doing quite nicely. The pawn on e5 is under a bit of pressure. The black bishop is going to develop to c5 whilst attacking the queen.
Yep.
It just feels like Black has got everything he's wanted out of this opening.
Yep.
Um,
I think I like Queen. I think I like Queen C7 as a move
yeah, yeah,
because, yeah, I think.
and and look at the times. Look at the times. They're level. They're
Oh
pretty
wow.
much level, which is something that we didn't see in the first two games. Now, yeah, okay,
No.
these are quicker games, but Alex has spent 4 minutes for the first 14 moves. Well, he was like he'd used minus a minute for the first 14 moves in
Yep.
the previous game. So yeah, and just as a confirmation, Trevor has won. So many congratulations, and here is your trophy, Trevor. I've just put the trophy up on the stream, Tim. So
Okay.
Trevor has won the minor section, 3 points to one in the first set of tie breaks against Richard Bailey. Many congratulations, not only on that incredible save in that game just then, but overall, very good performance, and commiserations to Richard, who's played his part in a great tournament and a great match as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well done. Well done to both.
Mm.
Yep.
Tremendous. Right, I shall take the trophy away for one moment. You can take it home with you, Trevor, if you want. It's a picture. It's nothing more.
Socially distanced trophy.
Socially distanced picture of a trophy.
Yep.
So let's jump back to the other final that we have, which is still going on. I've realised I haven't updated the score. Steve is 1-1. It is 1-1 in this match. It's not 1-0 to Alex. We are in
Yep.
the first match, the first
Yep.
game of this
The
set of
tie
tie
break.
breaks.
Yep.
So tonight is not over by a long stretch, Tim. So
No. 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 It's.
strap in. We're still going.
I think the tie breaks feel about right because we were saying that we thought it would be quite closely fought,
Yeah,
between these players. They and we've seen that, a combination of sort of preparation and sort of digging deep when it was needed in the
yeah,
ending, which is what Steve was talking about. Yeah, really, really great to see both of these finals go to a tiebreak. And
yeah. Really good.
yeah, so for this one, for anyone who's joining at this stage, it's 6+3,
Hmm.
um, and they're going to play twice. So this game and then one more game, and then if it's still tied, we reduce to 3+2
Yeah,
point. So
yeah. And I think one of the interesting things here is that I think Steve, of all players, is a player that particularly likes the longer increment. Certainly
yes,
something that we've spoken to him about before. So how he adapts to a 3 second increment, he'll be familiar with this because he's played in all of our Mellow Monday tournaments. He's used to playing on that 3 second increment,
yeah,
and if it gets there, the 2 second increment as well. But it's certainly something that I think probably favours Alex more than Steve going into a shorter time control, but the
yeah.
position says otherwise.
That looks like it's a tactic. Is
What,
there a
just
reason we can't take?
take on e5?
You take on H7. Is that the issue that you've got eight take on H7 and Queen H5?
Okay, so that's
Yeah,
trading.
yeah. So I'm just trying to
So
go
just to
further
put
down
this
it.
on the
Yeah,
board, I
yeah, do
can't
yeah,
obviously analyze it. So knight takes e5, the bishop takes on h7, the king ends up on that square, and then you play the move queen to h5, which would attack both that king on a7, h7, and the knight on e5. So then you could retake it back.
yeah.
Um,
Then what's going on?
but
Is
effectively, you're trading as white. You're trading the e pawn for that h pawn, and that actually doesn't feel beneficial to me. Um,
the issue though? I'm just trying to visualize the position. Is the issue is that if White takes the Queen on E5, I'm just looking at that as an example.
mm,
Are you vulnerable to Queen takes Queen, Rook takes Queen, Bishop F6? So he has taken. We might actually see this on the board.
No,
So
he's gone Queen G3 very
okay.
quickly. So I think so. And Jack's mentioned this in the chat, and I think I agree with him that actually just these central pawns that Black would have or has now
Yep.
would just win the ending for Black, would just
Yeah.
slowly move forwards, and this H pawn is just not worth as much as the E pawn.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, specifically, the point I had there was after, yeah, potentially after bishop f6 at the end of that line, black can maybe capture on c3 because the knight's still so
Yes,
bishops, and then you've got this weak pawn structure. I mean, obviously we've gone down a different path now,
we've gone
but
down a different path, and look
and
at the
that,
times. The
yep.
times are going to be crucial.
Oh
So
goodness me.
no more analysis in this game. We are just going to be following the moves,
Yep.
seeing what happens and unfolds.
Yep.
And Alex has won several games on time in the past. I think Steve's quite good at not losing on time. I don't want to jinx him, but certainly on
So
Mondays he has. And Black has won on time. So
wow.
so Black has won this game on time. I mean, Black's doing well here. Let's
That's I mean that's just there's not yeah, black is doing extremely well here,
yeah,
having won the pawn. So
yeah, won the pawn. Got a very nice knight on c4, which is going to probably come to e5, and yeah. So I think it's not a swindle there at all. But yeah, moving on to the second set of games, and we've seen a London alert, alert. We
alert,
have a
alert.
London. Welcome Richard or Ocelot to the chat. Commiserations on that match. What a swingy last game as well.
Absolutely
That
amazing this
king
game.
hunt not quite working out, and also the queen attacking the queen on pre. We're intrigued whether both you and your
What
opponent
happened?
sort of
Yeah.
saw that, where you played queen a4 check, where the queen was on c2 and it didn't get taken, then you moved it back. Was that just an oversight from both players, or some good sportsmanship? We were intrigued and hypothesizing here.
Yeah.
Um,
Welcome to the chat, Richard. Thanks for joining
yes.
us. Yeah, that's great. Are we going to see a similar thing to before then in this game here? I think we've got this knight h5 idea.
Going down the same line, it feels like Steve's taking a little bit of time to think, can he play something different here? But
Yeah, yeah,
I don't think so. I think once you've committed to this line,
yeah.
I think you're sort of stuck going in
Well,
for it.
this was the one he won before. So although
Yeah.
it was awkward, wasn't it? I think he's obviously spent time thinking about it.
Mm.
Um,
I'm amazed he's spending this long on this move. Um,
yeah, fingers crossed it's not a.
oh, so Tim has just muted himself, which is fine. Just having a short, or did he mean to?
I was just opening my can actually, and I didn't want it
Oh, did
to.
you? Okay. Yeah. So you were just talking, and then you muted yourself as you were opening the can, still talking, so I could just see your mouth move. And
Oh, okay. There must be a delay or something.
yeah, no, that's fine. Don't
Okay.
worry about it. Well, we've not seen the same thing, or did we see Queen B6 in the previous game as well? I
We
can't
haven't
remember.
seen this week, I don't think.
Mm.
But we saw something quite similar. Was it 2 weeks ago? I think it was in round three. This Queen B6, Queen B3
Yeah.
standoff.
Oh,
We,
sorry. I was just thinking. Here it is again. I was just thinking, but because why did Black not play Knight H5? But actually, it's because White took with the C pawn, not the E pawn this time.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, so that does make a difference. Um, so now I think White's going to play Knight takes B3. You don't really want to be taking with the pawn here and doubling those pawns. You get the open A file, but it's not worth it for the squares that you lose.
Yeah.
Knight or bishop would sit lovely on b4 and that. So you play knight takes b3. There'll be a check that comes in, so you probably have to drop the knight straight back to d2. But then you just potentially play moves like bishop d3 and castle as quickly as you can, I think.
Yeah.
But Steve is
Yeah.
taking some time here, and I think time could be a crucial thing here because Alex is still at his initial 6 minutes, and Steve already down below 4.
Hmm. Yeah. I guess we when we played our match earlier, Tom. It's a similar sort of situation that sometimes it's very very different if you need a draw. And I wonder if Steve's just weighing up here which of these two lines. He might even be considering a takes.
Mm.
I don't think it's a smart move here, but which is going to give him the best chance with the white pieces of sort of steering this into something
Yep.
boring, basically, for want of a
Steve
better
is a
word.
master at that, so I'm sure Steve has got something up his sleeve to steer it towards something as boring as possible, because that was his plan going in.
Yeah.
And what I think is really interesting is that in the first set of matches, Steve went 1-0 behind and had to come back, but now the roles have reversed, and so now
Yes.
Steve is ahead, and
Yep.
Alex is the one that needs to fight back to try and get the win to take it to an even shorter tiebreak.
Yep. I just think it's great that the stuff they said in advance of the match like all came true. That
Incredible.
Alex won the first one due to it's essentially due to preparation,
Yeah.
and everything came out exactly as he expected. And then Steve managed to steer it into an ending
Yeah.
and won the way he knows how. So yeah, really, really nice. Yeah.
Incredible. We definitely need to do that more often.
Yes, that's
Is
right.
get the players' opinions.
Yeah. What are you going to play? What's your plan?
Yeah, and Richard makes a good point actually that we haven't really touched upon is actually changing your mindset for different time controls
Yeah.
is actually quite difficult. Certainly, going from a slower time control to a faster one. Clearly, that's sort of the way tie breaks,
Yeah.
have always had to be. But it is a different mindset to go into a game where you've not got as much increment, you've not got as much starting time, and you do have to speed up.
Yeah.
Um, and
Yeah.
does take some adjusting, and that does play a part in it.
Yeah. It's a good job we went to 6-3 then, because I think at one point we were saying should we just go down to something less than that and stick at that level, but we've got this step down 6-3
Step
and then
6-3, which I
and then
think is good,
3-2.
right?
Yeah,
Because it's
I think
almost
that's
like
about right. Yeah,
slowly. Well, I say slowly. It's quite a big step from 10+6 to 6+3, but
yeah,
then 6+3 to 3+2 is also quite a big step
it
as
is.
well.
It is. Yeah,
But it's a smaller step than going straight from the top to the bottom. So,
yeah, exactly.
but like for me, and it'll
The,
be interesting to know what the
just looking at this
players.
position
Oh,
because
sorry.
the bar just swung, and he has spotted it. There's this pin on the H pawn, which is allowing white to just take on G6, and that
Yeah,
is
that's a nice move,
yeah,
and
that's unfortunate because that's losing a second pawn as well. That's losing and swapping the rook. So
yeah.
unless there's something I'm missing, it feels like
No, I don't think so. I think this is going to be 2 pawns to the good for Steve, um, to
yeah,
try and take this one. And what's interesting as well, and I'll mention it again now, is the Grand Prix that's coming up on Friday, the semi-finals,
yep,
streamed live on Twitch at 7:30. No, um, but
yeah,
Steve is in the semi-finals of the major section in that tournament as well, and will be playing
yeah,
in that. So he's having a very good autumn season
absolutely,
of
yeah.
online chess, and yeah, be interesting to see what happens then. 7:30 on this channel. So
7:30 on Friday, isn't it?
on
Yeah, I mean,
Friday, on Friday, is it? I don't know.
yeah,
Does Steve play the London? I don't know.
yeah. We're going to put some details out about that tomorrow via the mailing list. But we've
Yep,
got obviously the semi-final lineups finalised now, so
yep.
there'll be more information about that. And yeah, hopefully you'll be able to join us on
Mm.
Friday, or join Tom at least. So,
Yeah. But what will be interesting in this position, just heading back, is okay, white is 2 pawns up and is doing very well. I think black has to try something like f5 here to
I
try
was
and
I
trap
was
this
going to say
bishop.
that. Yeah,
I don't think it will work. I think white has enough. I'd just play bishop d3 here.
yeah,
I'd get out of there as quickly as possible.
yeah.
Um,
That felt like the way to sort of make a mess, right? And just say,
yeah.
I mean, yeah, it feels he's done it. Yeah,
Mm. And then white can play a move like knight c5, and it's this thing about consolidation that we were talking about earlier in
yeah,
some of the other games. White just needs to consolidate here, and white only needs a draw. It's not like Alex can try and salvage the game and win, and a draw is good because he's saved a
yeah.
draw in this position. He needs to get a win, and that dynamic's quite interesting.
I mean, this move is absolutely what you're talking about, right?
Yeah,
Is let's
let's try
yeah
and create a mess, right? Try
try
and
and make a mess.
get something going. Um, of course, white can just move one of these. Um, these pieces, probably the bishop back to e2, I would say, is a fine move, unless I'm missing
Yep.
anything.
No, that looks
Um,
good. Yep.
and just consolidate your 2 pawns up. There we go, and go forward with that.
Yep.
One thing I was going to say earlier is just going back to the point about readjusting on the time controls. It'd be interesting to know
Mm.
sort of what the players think. Certainly for me, it's like I mean I find this sort of this match format and different time controls. I think it's really interesting and adds something a lot different. That's obviously what we do in the Grand Prix as well. But from a playing point of view, is that more tricky? And would is it like 4 games at a longer time control? Would that's obviously going to suit some players, but in terms of a good match,
Hmm.
what's the balance and where it goes? I think it just adds a bit of drama and tension, which is something that you know having tie breaks is not something that players that aren't at a very very high level get the chance to play in that sort
Of
of thing.
course. Of course. Yep. Yeah, it's not the kind of thing you'd have at a congress, for example,
No.
or any sort of event like that. Yeah, it's yeah. We're obviously open to suggestions. It's probably worth
Yeah.
saying. Obviously we've had some feedback from some of the players, but
Yep.
anyone who's on our mailing list who've received the emails every week or something about what we're doing with the DCCA online club. If you have any suggestions on the format or you'd like to see more of this kind of thing,
Mm.
please do get in touch with any suggestions. And
Yeah.
we're sort of starting to plan a few things for January. So
Yep.
yeah, it would be really good to hear what your suggestions are. We're
Yeah.
sort of open to trying, like with this event. I mean, I don't think there's ever been such thing as a mini Swiss before, but it's quite an unusual format, and the idea was to try and get it all done before Christmas, wasn't it? So
Yep. And
yeah,
here we are before
yeah,
Christmas,
yeah,
as Steve just plays the move that I put an arrow on whilst you
yeah,
were chatting, just
yeah,
which is nice. And yep, taking there. You can also consider a move like you could have considered knight f5 check as well,
yeah,
but I think this is fine.
yeah.
And
It
yeah,
it
it's
feels almost impossible in this position. I mean, we who knows what impossible is in chess sometimes, but um, if White plays in such a way that he's playing for, it sounds weird, but if he plays for a draw,
yeah,
yeah, he will get at least a draw. Yeah,
mm,
like he just has to be alert to, alert to any tricks that Black
yeah,
tries to rustle up here. And I think
yeah,
he's doing exactly the right thing. These knights are coming into sort of c5 and maybe f5, and just sort of exchange the material.
yeah,
If it's going to simplify it
mm,
helpfully.
yeah. It's quite sad for Alex. I've had it sort of in this sort of thing where you're trying to win the game and you're just 2 pawns. You're just losing, and
Yep,
it's not a position where the computer would beat you in it, but in practical terms, you've got
yep,
chances. This is very
yep.
tricky, and we could see a repetition of moves here, but Steve has declined that opportunity, which is interesting.
Yeah,
Um, but yeah,
I
it's
think he
just
wants to win
tough.
this, doesn't he? Yeah,
Yeah, but I mean, the time is going to be the crucial thing. I mean, so knight c5 there would have got the draw and won the match, but Steve is trying to win this position
yeah.
and try and get 3-1, which fair play to him. Um,
Well, this is sort of hitting b7 now, isn't he? So sort of goaded the king across to e6.
yep,
Um, but now what do you take with the
you've got to take
pawn?
with the
Yes,
pawn,
because otherwise you're
otherwise
losing
you
the
lose
pawn.
it.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
yeah, so good move from Steve there, and
yeah.
yeah, it's an end game, which again is what Steve wants, and again he's ahead on the material going into it. The time is going to be Alex's saving grace
Uh,
here.
uh,
We've seen it before with Alex in the
so
match
make a
against.
prediction. Make a prediction here. What happens?
I think Steve's gonna. I think
Think
Steve will
Steve's
get
got
it
it.
done. Steve has plenty of experience at being very short of time and getting the moves done. But it does mean, and one thing, Alex has the time to punish any mistakes that
Yeah,
Steve may make. So
that's all I'm worried about here. That if with 8 seconds or 7 seconds, if you lose control of the position,
mm, if you start panicking, that's when things can go wrong. And
yeah,
at the
and now
moment, it's all been very controlled, but
yeah, this knight can't go to b3
no,
because it's gonna get stuck, right? So
just get trapped. Yeah, with a move like Rook B1, which would attack the knight, and it has nowhere to go, so has to drop back to c6 here to remain alive in this game.
Yeah. Yeah, you could save it with d3, couldn't you? But it would just lose another pawn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just trying to think, how can you get this rook into the game to create a mess? It's so tricky. You'd think it's on the
Uh,
open file, it's going to be so
yeah.
good, but it's struggling. I think it almost has to come back round to d8 to get d3 in.
I mean, I don't want this to be like a unjust, win for black on time, but I I don't think it's as easy as it looks. Like White has to move almost instantly, doesn't he? I'm just
Yeah, I think the thing is that, I mean, there are knights. There is a knight on the board, rather.
yeah.
So it does mean that tactics can always occur seemingly out of nowhere.
For example, I'm looking at like knight a7, knight b5 for black, and just saying, well, are you going to push the a pawn and
Yeah,
stop me getting my knight in there, or are you going to, in which case that weakens b4?
yeah, yeah. I think this is a nice idea. Just put the king on d3. Just put it in front.
Yeah.
Keep the king and the rook on opposite coloured squares so that the knight can never fork them.
Yeah.
Um,
Yes.
I think is a good
It's
practical
like
decision.
ultra paranoid, basically. Yeah.
But when you're short of time
Yeah.
and you can't think exactly on everything, I think it's a decent idea.
Yeah. I think.
Here comes knight a7,
Here
knight
comes knight a7.
d5. Black needs to keep this rook on the board, and that has dropped the rook. And I think that could be curtains here.
Yeah, because it's Mayo on e7 as well. Yeah.
Yeah, the rook coming round, and that looks like that's going to be it. Um, we will await confirmation on that with this game, but it does look like Steve's going to be taking this, and with the rook coming to e7, nothing you can do about it. The king can't move anywhere. It is stuck. You can't move any of these pawns out of the way. It's inevitable. It's coming next move, no matter what happens. And that is it. And Steve
Wow.
Dean has managed to take this match. And many congratulations to Steve. Commiserations to Alex. Some incredible preparation in that first game, and a good position in the second longer game as well. And Steve's end game prowess just took over and managed to take that game, and in the shorter time control, it all went Steve's way, really. I think Steve played that very, very well in the 6+3 portion.
Yeah, absolutely. No, congratulations, Steve. I mean, yeah, difficult, very difficult player to play against.
Very.
At any time control really, but really kept it together in the playoffs, which is brilliant. And
Yeah.
played quite quick actually in that second game. Managed to sort of match Alex
Yeah.
for time for certainly the first part of it. So yeah, congratulations. And
Yeah, and
see you in action on Friday as well, of course.
yeah. Well, I tell you what, Tim, we've been treated to two fantastic matches this
We
evening.
have absolutely.
Both going to a shorter tie break, and both having a bit of drama and a bit of swinging back and forth. And I'm still shell shocked by that preparation in the first game by
Yeah.
Alex. If I'm honest, it's still.
It'd be nice if Alex could join us in the stream, but not sure if he.
We'll have to set that up for next season.
We'll have to set that up for next season. Yeah, that's right.
We can get things on. Many thanks to everyone who's joined us in the chat this evening. I can see a lot of congrats to Steve and thanks for the tournament. It's an absolute pleasure to have put this on. Tim and I had spoken about this quite a bit before it actually sort of came out, and we announced that it was going to happen. And I was sort of, after the Grand Prix commentary, it was nice to be able to do a bit more commentating and showcase some new players as well. And I really hope that we can continue this going forwards. And yeah, I have to say a big thanks to Tim as well for helping out at this, because I can't do it on my own that often. It's hard commentating on my own, which I'm gonna have to do on Friday. And
yes,
nice
absolutely.
segue into Friday, where we will have the Grand Prix semi-finals on the channel. It will just be me, certainly for the start anyway, whilst Tim plays Jack, who has been in the chat for a lot of the evening. So yeah, any words on this tournament before we wrap things up, Tim?
Well, I think it's been a real success.
Mm,
Certainly, there's been a lot of there's been a lot of great games. It's been really nice to have the commentary on it. I mean, um, we I think it's gone even better than we could have hoped, and
yeah,
I'd like to think we could do one of these again in the new year. And
yeah,
maybe now that some people have seen what it involves,
yeah.
and that the commentary is all friendly, and you're not we're not sort of laughing at people's blunders or anything like that.
No,
And hopefully it's been instructive for people to sort of tune into that as well.
yeah.
I think we want to run one of these fairly early in the new year, and yeah, please sign up for that. And if you have any comments, please let us know.
Yeah, no, thanks everybody again for joining. And whether that be live, we've had quite a lot of people join during the stream, whether they be from Devon, knowing it from the mailing list, or actually just seeing us on Twitch and just popping into the stream and saying hello and seeing what's going on. Um, and yeah, we'll see everybody on Friday, unless you're playing, I hope. But also, if you're watching on the video or on demand as well, we know we get quite a lot of views on that as well. So
Yeah.
yeah, right. I'm gonna go and have a sleep after that.
Me too. Thanks for
uh,
tuning in, everyone. Yeah.
yeah, and cheers, Tim, once again for joining us.
No
And
problem.
we'll see you all on Friday. Bye for now.